This is JD Calderon, and this is Indy Comics Explained. Yet again, I've brought on another fantastic group of guests. And today's a little special guests. So this will be really interesting. Some of them are creators, but all of them are podcasters. So, it's really good. Actually, they're all really interesting. So, well, without further ado, let's bring on our co-host. Well, and technically, all the co-hosts, everybody really weird and really interesting. So, but here's our typical co-host, Mr. Mark Torres.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Indy Comics Explained.
Please introduce yourself,
I am Mark Torres from McCain from Radio, official of the Big Apple Con. We host a terrestrial radio show that's also available online as a podcast form. We have a slew of tons of guests today. And for those of you listening, JD might be lagging, so I might be taking over the show in a little bit. But let's get to our panel. Who else do we have on for today's show, JD?
All right, let's bring on Mr.
What's up, everybody?
Introduce yourself, Sam, please.
Man, Vera, podcaster extraordinaire and creator of There's an Alien in My Toilet, the most fantastical, hilarious comic book series of the century. And issue 2 is coming to Kickstarter May 31st, so make sure you sign up. There you go. That's me.
Thank you. Yes, Mr.
Hello, I'm
How you doing, Michael? Please
I'm Michael Grassia.
Introduce yourself.
I am the creator currently of the webcomic The Wiz, which is coming back in July, and I host a podcast called Get in Tune. That's TOON, like cartoon. Every Tuesday night, live at 8:30 p.m. on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook.
All right, cool.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, hey there. I'm Randy Zimmerman. I'm a longtime alternative and independent comics creator. I am currently part of the Raging 2 Network, and I do the Zimcast on Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. and the Sunday Funnies at 9 a.m. on Sundays.
Nice. And Mr. RJ, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Introduce yourself, RJ.
I'm glitching.
He's glitching.
I am RJ Carter, Senior Managing Editor at CriticalBlast.com, myopic proofreader for Critical Blast Publishing, Chief Envelope Licker for Critical Blast Logistics, and I answer the phone for Critical Blast Consulting, all real companies born out of broadcasting and seeing needs by talking to people who are creating comics.
I like how you say it's all real companies. Every company is a real company, darn it.
They actually make money, companies.
Oh. Well, then.
Nice.
Jay,
I'm going to hand it over
I...
to Mark for a few minutes. I'll be back.
Yep.
All right, so it's all me then. Awesome.
What happened, Randy?
I was going to say, JD and I can...
I'll be back in a few minutes.
All right, JD, you go.
This is coming to you live on tape. So, happy Mother's Day, everyone. I guess we'll just start off with the roundabout questions. Normally we have each one of us asks a question and everybody else answers the question. So I'm going to ask the question first. For the panel, at what point, or is there a point where you can let go of your property to let someone else take the creative reins to be more productive and prosperous?
Are you talking podcast, or are you talking our actual creator?
I'm talking anything that you're creating. Either if you're doing a podcast, if you're doing a comic book, if you're doing anything you're creating, because obviously the goal is to make a living off of it, make it a big company. At what point you're like, all right, I'm gonna let someone else take the reins of this property while I continue doing other things behind the scenes. And since Mr. Crazy Man is to my right, go Sam. You get to go answer the question first.
If it's a licensing deal, then the licensing partner, you give them creative control, you act as a consultant, and you keep creating. That's the ultimate, for me, the scenario that would allow me to pull back. Whether it's a publishing house or a production company, whatever it is, you let the experts in that field do what they do best, and you're just there to guide the characters, make sure that it's pure to the character and the storyline. Other than that, let them do what they do best, and you do what you do best, and just keep creating your story. So that's the only scenario that would allow me to pull back.
All right. Michael, what do you got?
I don't know. It's a tough question. It's something I actually think about quite a bit. I haven't been creating a lot lately due to lots of personal reasons, and I'm getting back into creating again. Like I mentioned, my Wiz comic will be back online in July. It's hard to say for me. With the podcast, I'd be willing to pass it along, or let someone else kind of do a lot more of the work than me. If I could see some money coming in, I'm happy to do that. But with my creations, I have to see the deals as they come. It's like Sam said, if it's a licensing deal and you put the people who know what they're doing in charge and let them do their thing, as long as I can keep true to who the characters are and my stories are, I'd be fine with letting go of stuff.
All right, RJ, what do you got?
150 books. And I use that number because that's the number of books that Warren Murphy and his writers did for The Destroyer before letting me play with the property. So I'm coming at it from another angle where I was the person who took over somebody's creative property and came in and started writing for them.
So I have a follow-up question then. So as the person coming in, what do you feel you brought to the table, and what obligations do you have to the creator?
You have a lot of obligation to the creator because you want to make your mark on the series. You want people to say, oh yeah, this is the thing that happened during the time that RJ was writing it. But at the same time, you could change nothing. You have to keep the characters true to who they were. You can't he can't lose an arm. He can't, marry a dude. He has to stay Remo Williams the entire time, and has to act accordingly. All the creative cast, all the ancillary cast have to stay in character. So it's a challenge to grow a character that way, especially after 150 books. You want him to be fresh and not stagnant. And at the same time, you want to, throw in some changes. Hopefully I've done that.
All right. Randy, what do you got?
Well, I do commercial artwork, also sequential artwork, and I've created a number of characters for different clients. And those characters, especially once I'm paid for the job and the job is completed, they have complete rights and control over, and I really don't try to get very attached to them. There's one team of superheroes I created for a nature preserve that I'm especially attached to, that I'm about to go back and approach them again to see if I can get back into those characters. Not that they've used them since I stopped. COVID really threw a wrench into everything, but in more ways than one. But other than that, it really all depends upon the property. If somebody wants to pay me, I'll be real happy to accommodate their needs, or the property owner's needs. If they want me to create a property, I can create a property for them and not be that attached to it. But I do have properties that I am very attached to, properties that are me, that I would be very picky about. Some I want other people to work on, and that I would love to see other people's interpretations too, and others that I feel are very personal that I wouldn't let anybody touch. So it really all depends upon the property.
Wow. So follow-up question. So how do you decide at what point you look at something, you're like, hey, this is something I want to get invested in, or you know what, I'm just going to do it for a paycheck?
Well, usually when it all depends upon the money involved and how much control, personal control that I've got over the idea or property. That's really the big key, and how personally attached I am to it. That's the big thing. I've got a few, like I said, a few properties that I write that I can and draw that I consider to be me, only in like cartoon form. So those properties I don't like anybody touching, and other entire universes that I've created individual characters in that I would love to have somebody come in and give their own twist to.
Okay. Mr. Sam Vera, do you have a question for the group?
This is, I guess, for podcasting. I guess let's flip the script. When it comes to guests, is there anything that frustrates you?
Oh, all right. Mr. Michael, you get to go first.
The only thing that I've actually had some really good guests. I'm gonna say, there's only been like one or two that I've been frustrated with on air, because during the interview I felt like it was like pulling teeth. They were excited to be on. They're like, oh, I can't wait to be on. I can't wait to talk to you. You ask them a question, they give you a one-word answer.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, can you give me more? You know, tell me about, you know, your character. How'd you create your character? Oh, well, I was watching this cartoon as a kid, and I was inspired by this cartoon. And then they tell you, okay, that's it. Now, what about, can you tell me more? What was it about the character that inspired it? And I'm just sitting there, and like I said, it's like pulling teeth. And I've only had like one or two, and I hope I didn't let it show that it was annoying me on the air, because all my stuff is, you know, it's like this. We're on video here, so that's it. That's the only thing. I've had tons of great guests. I've made awesome friends. I've even made connections and gotten work drawing comics from some of the people that were on my podcast, just because they were like, hey, I like your work, you know, thanks, we got along great. We did after, you know, you talk either before or after build up, and I've made some good friends. So I love doing the podcast. I love what I do, and I love all the people I work, you know, I've talked with and worked with. It's just one or two that, you know, I don't think they should be answering questions live on the air. You know?
Let me do a follow-up with that, Michael. Did you have conversations before, and they spoke normally, or was like any indication that they would be like that?
Well, most of the conversations, because I do a lot of, and Sam's been on the show, but I know Sam. We're friendly. We're friends, but I mean, like, we're friendly where we could just talk, and I can message him and say, hey, what do you want to talk about? Tell me what questions. I give everybody, this is kind of my format. This is what I ask in the beginning, middle, end. This is how I want to end the stuff. What questions do you want me to specifically ask? Is there anything you want me to stay away from? And they send me back and forth stuff through usually like some kind of email or Facebook Messenger or Instagram Messenger, whatever it is. Once in a while I get to talk to them before, but usually it's mostly correspondence through text, you know.
All right. Mr. RJ, what do you have?
Oh, well, I definitely agree with Michael about the one-word answers. And you also have the other end of the spectrum on that, where you introduce your guest. And it's not that they talk too much. I love that. I'll go on for 2 hours. I went on for 4 hours yesterday because Hart Fisher was on. But it's that, you know, you say, and welcome, you know, Bob Smith, creator of Super Frog. And he introduces himself, and he tells you all about the book and how the book was created and why he created the book and what inspired the book and when it's going to go out. And it's like, you're like, okay, that's everything. And we're at 7:05 now.
What about you, Mr. Randy?
I thought RJ was going to talk about me. He couldn't shut me up when we were talking.
No. That I would never even try to do that. The longer Randy's on my show, the better my show becomes. Oh,
well, thank you for that. Most of the time when I podcast, I'm in a group like this, and the majority of the time it's hard to get a word in, even edgewise, or you're trying not to walk over everybody else, especially when you get into a passionate discussion and you want to start talking. But I really enjoy doing a lot more one-on-one interviews in the future. I've never had that opportunity yet, but kind of looking forward to it. This morning, Sunday Funnies was kind of like that. We started talking, and then the conversation starts wandering all over the place, and I had a particular direction as to where I wanted the show to go, because we want to, on Sunday Funnies, we want to talk about the more lighter side of comics and our passion about the industry and why we do what we do. And the show just went crazy off the rails on just about every direction you can imagine. So it's at times it's almost like herding cats, you know, trying to get a direction or get people back on track, or to, especially on Sunday Funnies, to keep the conversation light. And we talked about some really heavy topics this morning, so that gets to be a frustration at times.
I guess myself. Hey, Mr. JD Calderon is back. Are you still glitching?
No, I think I got it. I just had to reboot the system, so it just made it. So.
All right, awesome. So for me, I would agree the one word answers is the worst. It's only happened one time in all the years we've been doing the show, and luckily we're a radio show, so no one sees my reactions of I'm wanting to strangle the guest. I had met this guy at a convention. We had such wonderful conversations about his stuff, his property. I was like, this guy seems really interesting. He had tons and tons of stories to tell me. We spoke on the phone, tons and tons of stories. Get on the air, one word answers, literally one word answers. I'm like, what the hell? Is this guy on drugs or something? And it was like the longest hour we've ever done. The second thing that I find most frustrating, and it's only happened once again, one other time, is that we actually had to get our questions pre-approved when we interviewed William Shatner. It was frustrating because he can command a room. If you ever seen him at a panel or anything, he knows how to run the show. And we had some good questions, and he gave us so much information. I wanted to have follow-up questions, but I knew I couldn't because I was bound to stick to these questions, the pre-approved questions, and I felt that it hurt the interview because I wasn't able to have a normal conversation with him.
Yeah, pre-approved questions are interesting. I've only had to do that a couple of times. One, I was interviewing a Doctor Who writer, and it was during the Jody run. And I asked the question about, the anti-gun stance that the Doctor would have now, which, the Doctor's always hated weapons of some sort or another, even though he's used them on multiple occasions as well. And I was like, was there a story directive in this that was, is there a reason? I mean, did something happen that we're going to see that caused this? And of all the questions I asked, the BBC nixed that question. They wouldn't allow it to be asked.
Wow.
Interesting.
All right, Mr. Sam Vera, answer your own question.
I don't get to answer the question? Damn.
Yeah, let JD go.
Actually, did you know what the question was?
Yeah, because I was listening on my phone.
I thought you had to shut off everything, turn it back on. So, Mr. JD Calderon, what do you have for us?
What's funny, the funniest one I ever had was the guest actually sent me a list of questions to ask him. That was the funniest one. I got a nice big list, and I was like, okay. I went through, I edited out whatever, and but I went on my own direction during the conversation. But he was a good guest, though. He was a really nice guy.
So with the list, did when you asked a question on the list, did he have like the best answers ever? Because it sounded like he was preparing for these questions to be asked. If not, then it was just a waste of time.
Yeah.
No, he was prepared. He answered his own questions well. But like I said, I tend to, I like to monkey with those things. So
Yeah, make them your own.
Yeah, exactly. It's I wasn't gonna just let him run away with the show. So there you go, Sam. Please answer your questions, sir.
Laundry list. No, but it's the ones that that hunt you down to get on your show, but don't respond when you send them the StreamYard link and don't show up, right? And then 2 days later, it's like, oh, I forgot all about it, right? So I'm like, all right, well, we're not booking you back on for another year, right? So it's like, or the ones that we had one that was really stands out that almost had a panic attack, was wondering why we're asking so many questions. And I was like, did you know what they were doing here? I was like, well, I don't understand this. And then you have those that, again, that it's like pulling teeth, which is why, like, when I play off with George, we'll text each other. And I was like, I got nothing. And he's like, I got nothing. All right, so we gotta end this because we're not getting anything from this. And so it's like, but then it's all relative, because if you go to Comic Cons, those same guys at the table with their heads down and they don't want to talk to people. Right. So, but they want, they want to promote this stuff on podcasts because it's the thing to do, but they're just not ready to do it. Yeah. So those are the things that frustrate me.
Nice. Hold on. Can I run through some of these real quick? Here, this is me while I was listening. Right. What's up, Pops? How many of you have a LLC or something similar protecting assets? Well, yeah.
Crazy Media Group.
Yeah.
I sort of have that.
I can't. A lot of people didn't show up.
Says, now you know how I feel when I took over Crown JD. There you go, exactly. No shows are the worst. And who didn't show up? That's the worst. There you go. But yeah, I gotta say something. This one's for Pops and anybody who is a podcaster that's not here. This is less than a quarter of the people I wanted to have on. But the room filled up fast. So it was like, you know, I didn't want to have like, I really don't like having the 9-panel grid because it's too many heads. And I ask one question and 45 minutes later, we're getting to the second question. So, you know, I prefer 6, 7 at most, you know, so yeah. So typically that's how I like to keep it. So if you're not on here, I want to do another one of these with a whole different group of podcasters. So, you know, so Pops, you know, you will be getting a call eventually.
So I want to put Sam on the spot for the no-shows. We've had a couple of no-shows, but everybody had a good reason except for one guy. He did say he forgot, and after that, I made it a purpose to have like a set schedule of when to send reminders to people. But that guy, I still remember who he is, and I will never mention his name, but he didn't show up. But Sam was one of the no-shows for our show one time. They got into a car accident on the way to the studio. But this was before, like, this was way back in the day before internet and all that kind of stuff was like, you know, as we are today. So we're doing the show live. We're at the studio, and we're like, well, he's supposed to be here, and nobody's there. And then when the show's over, we get a call, like, yeah, we had a fender bender. We were driving, and we couldn't get there in time.
In the middle of Long Island.
Yeah. So I was like, you know what? If you're not going to show up, that's a good reason. We had a guy, he had a dock fire. He was a dock worker, and he didn't show up to call in. And when I got home, he left me a message on my phone. I'm sorry, we had a fire at work because he was going to take a break at work and call us. And he had a fire at work. And like, you know what? A fire? That's the best excuse ever. And I don't know if you guys are aware of Michael Carbonaro, head of Big Apple Con.
Yeah.
He wasn't a no-show. He was a reverse show. Our show was on at midnight, and he came at noon on the day. So I get calls on my phone, like, "Where is everybody? I'm here, and no one else is here."
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we've had that.
Yeah,
that's funny.
No-shows. I've also had the like last-minute cancellations because I had again, I won't say who it was. It was a pro guest doing an independent crowdfunded book, and it was like 30 minutes before the show, and I got an email that says, yeah, I just finally got a chance to take a look at your channel, and I don't think I'm a good fit for it.
Wow. So that's even the worst. That's the when they've never seen your show, but they say, hey, I want to go and I got to promote my book or whatever, and they come on their show, and then they're like dumbfounded by the format. I'm like,
well, I had approached him. I had said, hey, I like your book. I liked what you did with it in the late 80s. Would you come on the show? And he's like, yeah, one day.
Yeah, but even still, if someone approaches you to be on their show, you should at least do some type of due diligence. Like, who is this guy? What do they have to offer? It only makes sense to do a little bit of research, know what you're walking into.
No, a good percentage of the people that come on are referred to us by their friends that were on the show, but they never actually watched it, so they don't know the structure. You know.
Yeah, I had one guy who was booking shows for other people, and I was like, okay, look, these are the dates I have available. And then they were like, oh no, I can't do this one, can't do this one, can't do this one. I'm like, dude, I gave you like 5 dates. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm trying to work with you here. All right, how about these dates next week? No, they can't make the wedding, school bus explosion. I don't know. They had every excuse you could come up with. They had one. I was like, it's all good. Don't worry about it. I got other people. It's fine. But here's one. I'm gonna post this one real quick. This is from Pops. I got no offer to go on a bigger channel than yours. Lol. That was my favorite. Yeah, that. Wow. I got that one. Well, I didn't so much get that one. I got one. It was their campaign wasn't ready, so I was like, but I was very grateful that it wasn't. I was like, okay, no problem. I didn't want to interview this person anyway. So, hold on. Where are we at? You need the Pro 10 person StreamYard. I can do 10. Like I said, I don't like doing more than 6 or 7 because it's just too many people to talk to. It just takes too long. You know? Pop says I stand ready. I have a 10. All right, Pete? Oh, Pete, I guess I got to get you on here. I've never no-showed Mark when I came from the radio. So there you go, Mark.
He's true. He has always shown up.
All right, cool. So who was up next, or should I just ask?
Mr. RJ was the next question up.
There you go, Mr. RJ. Go for it.
Okay, so given the frustrations of no shows and short answers, And other than the big fat paychecks that we pull in every week for this, why are we doing this?
Oh man, that was my question.
That was mine too. One of them I had.
That was my first question.
Nah.
All right, so who's up to answer first or next or whatever?
Mr. Randy, you have the floor.
I have no idea. No, I just love to talk, and having this opportunity, having this, the internet's out there now, the ability to talk to fellow creators is just a great thing for me. Plus, you know how much I like to talk, so sometimes you can't shut me up. That's really why I like doing this. Is that, and in the past, I've seen it actually help people in a lot of ways, whether it's learning technique, dealing with life, or whatever. It's been a very rewarding experience that I wouldn't trade for anything.
Mark?
Oh, I'm supposed to keep on going? Okay. I thought you were taking over. All right. Mr. Michael, you're next.
Okay. It's actually not too different. When I started my podcast, it was because of the pandemic. Cons shut down. I missed talking with friends and other artists and things, and it turned into, I just really, art is one of those jobs that, I work from home or something. I'm kind of by myself all the time. So it gives me a day, one day, even an hour, 2 hours, however long my podcast goes for, just to talk art with people. And I get excited, seeing projects. I mean, a lot of my stuff is, people are doing crowdfunding things, but which is great because I can see all these new comics that are coming out and what people are doing and things. But I also have animators on my show. I'm an animator by trade. I get to talk to writers and people who I never would have spoke to, especially now with the internet. I've had people out in California who've worked for Disney on my show, and I never would have seen them at conventions or chatted with them or got to know them. And so for me, what keeps me going and doing it is being able just to talk about subjects that I love and seeing all the great stuff coming. Now, with that said, it doesn't mean that right before the show or after, I'm like, I don't want to go on tonight. I just want to sleep tonight. I just want to watch a TV show tonight. Like, that's like always in my head up until the second I put my headphones on. And then I get the person on the other end of the screen and it's just fun. And I was like, we're just going to do short. We'll go an hour tonight. I end up doing like 2 hours, 3 hours some nights. And it's just because I'm having such a great time. I've tried to cut it though to an hour and a half, like as my max time.
All right, Mr. Sam. Why?
For the same reasons I started it back in 2006. It was really just to have a platform for the other guy. There wasn't enough out there for the independent creator. And, I just love finding people out there that have different perspectives on, writing or creating and just the art of the conversation. I think that's what we do it. That's the goal is, to continue as long as I'm able to do it, and see what happens. But it's always just been really just to buck the system and provide a platform for the independent.
So I guess I was more selfish than everybody else. The story goes like this. I wanted to be in comics. I always wanted to be in comics, always wanted to have my own comic book published. One day I was at the cemetery driving home in Long Island, and I heard an advertisement saying, hey, if you have an interest about something, you can talk to creators in your field. And I thought, hey, this would be a great way to network and get my book published. So I will make a comic book radio show. And I did. And I met people and I networked, and I did, although very limitedly, got a book published. So my goal was met. As the time has gone on, the show has grown and it's formed its own little thing. Like I never thought after all these years, we started in 2003, I'd still be going. And I've met so many people and there's so much creative talent out there that the mainstream media does not pay attention to. And I thought, hey, let's keep this going and see if we can promote those little guys. And that's where I am right now.
Nice. Am I up this? Or am I
Yes,
up in the
sir.
Okay. I'll take over after this question. All right. But for myself, the reason I started this was it was during COVID, so I just wanted to get in touch with other creators again. I mean, the place I would normally get in touch is conventions. Hadn't been to one in forever, and I just wanted to reach out. And also, I find it interesting that like these platforms are so useful in helping everybody crowdfund. And I want to make my show and all your guys' shows. I would like us all to build a network of shows where a person can come on our shows and just like fund. Wouldn't that be fantastic? You get a guy on your show and say, listen, I'm gonna bring you on, you're a good person, I like your stuff, and we're gonna get you to 3,000 or whatever, 1,500 or whatever, and just be able to do that, or just get them a few $100 and just be able to encourage and get more independent comics out there, because that's really what I'm about. It's all about the indie comics.
So you want to be the Oprah of podcasters?
But here's the thing: I want us all to be the Oprah of podcasters.
All Oprahs.
I want everybody to be Oprah. Or maybe you could be Phil Donahue. I don't know.
Phil Donahue.
Yeah, something. I know I'm old, right? Thank you. RJ, you're up, sir. Answer your question, please.
He just asked
What was the question? I forgot. Oh,
why?
Well, because I had, for me it was I had the website, and when I got the website set up, I made sure that all the social media, that it was clear on all of them, so I could claim the name, and started just putting up reviews on YouTube, and quickly got to the 1,000 subscribers. It was necessary to be monetized. And then, well before COVID, I started seeing, this crowdfunding movement started taking off full steam in about 2018, 2019, maybe a little bit before. And I started listening to all the podcasters, and I saw these huge numbers they were racking up right about the time that YouTube said, yeah, that's not enough to be monetized for you anymore. We're going to have 4,000 hours. And darn it, I needed my $100 every 15 months because that's how long it took me to make it. So I saw all these guys who said, this is easy. I couldn't do this. And I started, and I've been, too stubborn to give up.
Nice. Okay, cool. Now, who is next, Mark?
Mr. Randy would be the next person with the question.
I got nothing. No, I should have been more dramatic with RJ's question and say I was sitting in the living room and a Yeti microphone came breaking through my window, and I said, comic creators are a talkative lot. That's what I should have said. I honestly don't know what to ask. I that was the big one that I was curious about, exactly what your motivation was behind doing it. But what do you think we can do to make ourselves different from all of the other shows that are out there? Anybody have any suggestions?
I like to think I am different than all the other shows out there. Ha
In what way?
It's true, because nobody can see your face.
Yeah, nobody can see your face.
Because I always like to say we're an actual radio show first and then a podcast second. So we actually keep to a time limit. We actually sort of have a format. I mean, once the pandemic hit, everything went out the window. But we had to take commercial breaks. We had to do this. We had to do that, like a more structured format. I find a lot of podcast shows are just kind of, let's turn it on and let's just go and see how long it goes. So our show, we an hour. That's it. So if you're a great guest, come back another time, come back next week, whatever. But we got to fill that hour. If you're a terrible guest, you better keep on saying those one-word answers for an hour, because that's what we got.
Nice. So I don't know what direction you just answered. So should I go?
I was just throwing it out there because he said anybody. So does anybody?
Right.
Anybody? Yeah.
Well, we should all go around the room. Structure. You just said it yourself. Structure, sir. What is wrong with you?
Well, I'm not used to being in charge of the show and then not being in charge of the show.
All right. So I'll answer next. Well, I mean, it's funny. I don't have anything because I like my show. Like I know when I do my interviews, right? So let's take the interviews for as an example. When I do the interviews, I try to keep it to an hour. My first 30 minutes is exploratory. My next 15 minutes is about whatever it is you're doing currently. So if you have a campaign or whatever, that's that 15 minutes. Then the last 15 minutes is me asking all my goofy questions, right? And then that's my structure, right? For this show, it's primarily just getting together and talking about comics. So, you know, and as far as like it being different, I mean, the only thing I can bring to the game is just try to bring whatever little passion, enthusiasm I have, and just just try to ask interesting questions about the business to try to educate people. Because you're the one of two. You either have to be one of two things. You either have to be interesting, / educational, right? So you're serving a purpose, or you have to be entertaining. And I save the dancing monkey stuff for my comics. So
I want to say that JD does have a different thing where he lets everybody ask a question in the entire panel. I don't normally see that on most podcasts as well.
Well, yeah, and sometimes I try to switch it up a little bit. Just like I thought this was interesting that having just podcasters on, because all of us are used to interviewing people, not necessarily being interviewed, right? We're used to asking the questions and not being asked. So I thought that was interesting. Anybody else? Sam, what do you got, man? What do you think can make us all different?
I think it's all based on your personality. I think what we do. What are the things that George and I contemplated? Our show has been structured from the beginning. So if you watch outside of the Kickstarter shows, the actual shows where we interview guests, it's structured. You have an opening, we have a get your meds section. We have the guest interview, which is really just 25 minutes for the guest, and we have our closing. So we structure it that way, which is why, like a lot of guests want to come back because they feel like it goes by fast. But we do it that way because we want to keep things interesting. And because people have limited attention spans, we try to segment everything to be able to give them little anecdotes here and there so they can pick and choose which part of the show they want to, participate in or want to watch. And then we offer a variety of things like, the Crazy 10 or Less, which gets a lot of engagement. And that's just a 10-minute show every Mondays where I pick up topic and I just run down the topic. And then now we have the Morning Brew, which we get a live audience. So we try to change things up and provide something for based on the feedback we're getting from our current subscribers. So if we see there's a majority there and there's something that we're capable of doing, we'll add it to our roster. But I think you have to constantly look at what's out there and try to make sure you maintain your own lane without looking like everybody else. Going to a costume party and everybody's dressing up like Dracula. You know what I mean? So it's like, you got to change things up. So I think understand what's happening out there, look at your competitors, and then listen to the people that are actually subscribing to your show and hear what they have to say, and then try to incorporate that.
All right, cool. Michael, you got anything?
I get, kind of what Sam said about, kind of know, who you are, kind of be in your lane with what you're good at. Cause like a lot of times, and I know Sam and JD both been on my show, and you could tell me if this is true or not for you guys but a lot of times when I've interviewed people who I don't know, they tell me that doing my show is just like hanging out and talking with a friend. It's I kind of like set mine up. It's just very conversational. I don't want to have tons of questions. I'm just like, hey, so the audience doesn't know who you are. Just tell us a little about yourself. And then they'll mention, oh, well, this artist, got me into comics. And, usually it's an artist I'm aware of. And we just start BSing and we sidetrack a lot, I know. But I try to, in my head, I try to keep a little structure. And by that, like 30-minute mark, I have to kind of get us back on track. I try to keep the tangents going. But I had one guy, I did a show. We did almost 2 hours because a tangent went for an hour, literally an hour. We just talked about the industry and just all this different stuff. He's like, Michael, let's just have it was just like we were hanging out, having lunch together. And I think for me, that works, but I know what works for me. That's the thing. Like, I don't try to really structure. I know, I've been on Sam's show and I know how he's like, okay, you're going to call in at this time because you're going to be this 25-minute interview spot, and I'll watch like the beginning and things. Like I don't have that breakdown. It's just, hey, come on, grab a cup of coffee, whatever the hell you want to drink, and just let's sit down and BS about the stuff, and we'll make sure to promote you. You know. So.
All right, cool. RJ, you got any thoughts on it?
I just, first of all, I just try to own the criticisms of the show. Anytime, I've gotten into, words, which rarely, but sometimes happens on places like Twitter. I'm told, why are we listening to a guy who has, 5 viewers? So I just sometimes bill our channel as the most talked about, least watched channel on YouTube about comics. And then, sort of by accident through a karaoke night on another channel, I ended up getting myself a co-host and sometimes guest interviewer. And I kind of like to talk about comics with people. Yeah, this is Marmalade. And,
That's awesome.
Love it.
Yes.
Well,
Should I grab my puppet behind me?
No, she's not.
At least it's your puppet. Yeah.
I got this little guy. I use this with kids when I work with them.
There you go.
Oh, I love it. What's your name?
I can't do the voice right now. It hurts.
Come on, Mike.
Very hyper character. His name is Ray.
Hi, Ray.
Hello.
Where's my tequila?
I've never been on a podcast before. This is a very interesting looking group of people.
Here. You're the ugliest one there. You know that, right? Hey.
That is hilarious. You guys should do a show.
That's a show.
You guys should do a show where the puppets are interviewing people.
Yes.
That
There you
would
go.
be hilarious.
That's
Well,
different.
if I bring a puppeteer on, maybe I'll do that.
We have a playlist on our channel that's the Marmalade Show, and he's interviewed Daphne Lage. He's interviewed Chris and Diana Tomilovich. He hasn't interviewed enough people because my area is my studio, is my workspace, is my bedroom, I live here. This is it. This is everything I've got. So very limited space to work with for the next foreseeable few months. But when I do get my own place, a studio is a must.
What's up, Luke?
Luke Stone, another broadcaster.
Yes. Like I said, I got less than a quarter of the people I wanted on. That's the craziest thing. And then one person who there was supposed to be. I'm supposed to have another person, but I don't know what happened to him. But
No,
I'll get back to that guy. But he's cool. people,
Was it a
so-
puppet?
No, it wasn't a puppet. He's a man cool dude. He's a really good podcaster. A very good interviewer. He prepares much better than I do. Yeah. So, Randy, what are your thoughts? It's your question. You answer.
Well, I run 2 shows, one on Wednesday night that I try to keep opinionated, a little bit more adult oriented. I warn everybody up front that there will be expletives and maybe video clips from people that you might find offensive. And I try to keep that as much of an entertainment vehicle as possible. Try to be funny, try to be overly opinionated. I really want to I really want to be more opinionated on that show, and maybe even a little bit more angry. And then the show that I run on Sunday mornings, I want to keep light and fun and whimsical. Talk about our passion. Talk about the comics that we used to read when we were kids, that we loved, or books that we were really that we really admire, people that we really admire, that kind of thing. Why we're here, our more passionate, more light, more uplifting kind of a show. So I try to keep 2 different flavors on those shows and try to keep them separated. But I also, like Michael, I like having a show that is just people talking, friends getting together and discussing stuff. Oh, hey, did you know, that kind of thing. And that's kind of where this morning show went off the rail, because they started talking about the guy that they've cast as the new Doctor Who, and then that's led into politics and led into modern comics, and it's not really where I wanted the show to go, but that's where it went, and that's what we had. So yeah, I'm not nearly as preparatory as you are. I've been on your show, and I consider you to be a really, really good interviewer for a one-on-one type situation. But for me, it's just an open conversation.
All right, cool. Well, thank you for that. I mean, it's funny with my one-on-ones. I actually try to go into the interview not knowing anything about the person I'm interviewing. Because like I said, it's exploratory. So I'm trying to just find information. I'm not really like it because if I'm interviewing somebody I know, then it's like then I gotta actually prep. I gotta like go read books and stuff.
And on RJ's show too, it was more of an informal conversation.
Right.
We just sat around like, old time fans, just talking back and forth like we were at a show.
No, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So may I ask a question, Mark?
Yes, you're allowed to ask a question on your own show.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So, who is your dream guest? And I want living and dead, and why? Let's all right. Well, we know what we'll start with the guy next to me. Mark, go for it.
Oh, that's an easy one. Dream guest would be Paul Rubens, alive, and dead would be Adam West.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Adam West during what time period, though?
Happy Adam West towards the end. I just when I had met him was in the 90s, and I hadn't had the show yet. So when it came out to all the top people I always wanted to interview, it was him. Bill Bixby was on the list of people who I really wanted to interview, and it just started dying off. I was like, but Paul Rubens is my last one on my list of people who I want to interview and still alive.
All right, cool. Mr. Sam Vera, who are your dream guests?
This Jim Henson is my dream guest. That
it's no longer with us.
He the man with no puppet.
He created everything I love. And I guess alive, Todd McFarlane.
All right, cool. Todd might be able you might be able to do that one day.
He's a very approachable person, I gotta say. We had him pre-pandemic 2019. We talked to his people, and he gave us more time than we thought we had. We were like 10-15 minutes. He gave us like almost a half an hour. He was very talkative, very informative, great guy.
Cool, nice.
There you go. I still like 1960s Adam West. Michael.
Oh God, I got many. Okay, I'll say for comics, alive, either Todd McFarlane or Rob Liefeld. And Rob Liefeld more because he when you listen to him talk, he acts like a 12-year-old. He gets so passionate. Like he just loves the comic medium so much. It's like he's a kid again when you listen to him talk. Animation wise, Glenn Keane live, and dead, I would say I would love to talk to Joe Barbera for animation.
But he's got stories.
I've heard stories because I've had people on my show that have worked for him, and I know about it, but I'm just such a Hanna-Barbera fan that I'd love to talk to him. And actually, from Hanna-Barbera, Ed Benedict, who or from Warner Brothers, Maurice Noble, who was the background layout artist for the Chuck Jones unit in the animation.
Nice,
sweet.
Yeah, Mr. Randy.
Eisner, Kirby, I would love to have been able to interview, even a half hour or an hour with him, because I know he's got stories, and I would reach way back. Eisner, especially because he's got so much experience in so many different eras and areas of sequential art, not just graphic novels, but the Spirit days and his Army days. I find it especially fascinating because I love getting paid to do sequential art for advertisers, and that because I can, one, charge them like an advertiser or a lawyer, and two, you're actually educating people using comics as an art form, which I find particularly fascinating. Nowadays, or live, I saw a video that Rob Liefeld did yesterday where he was showing off his line for the Mother's Day crowd. Absolutely hilarious. He's going through the crowd going, "Hey, hello, how are you? How come this guy isn't signing? What's going on?" And it was genuinely funny and incredibly humorous. I bet Rob now would be an incredible interview, just because he's gone through what he has, and he's literally gone from wet behind the ears kid to a real professional working comic artist. And that to me would be a fascinating topic. Anybody else? Some of the older guys, Bob Layton, I would love to have on for an hour, especially on Sunday Funnies. I've got a wish list of different people. We had Trina Robbins on. That was a major love of mine for many years. We had Daphne interview her. And some of these guys that did books in the 80s that are forgotten, I would probably go out and try to track down. Like I said, I have a wish list, and I'm keeping my eyes open for a few people that I would love to have on the Sunday Funny Show, just to sit with them for an hour and talk, or two, and have a conversation with.
All right, cool. RJ, who your fantasy guests?
My bucket is getting shallower all the time.
Yeah.
Because I've had the opportunities to speak with Alan Parsons, Thurl Ravenscroft. I really wish I could have had a second interview with Lou Scheimer. I've talked with Dan Carlo. I've talked with Stan Lee, all for interviews. If there's somebody dead that I would love to get an interview with, and I was trying to and never got through, Yvonne Craig. And living would be Anne Margaret, because she's Anne Margaret.
Nice.
I sat next to Yvonne Craig at a Chicago show one time. She was amazing. Ended up buying her book and getting a photograph, and real fanboy time.
I bought 3 signatures from her, or I bought 2 signatures from her through the mail, and got 3 because she added a special note inside. Said, "Sorry, the ink smudged when I was doing this, Yvonne." I'm like, free autograph.
There you go.
Cool.
Nice. Imperium Vol says, I'd pick Ditko just because he'd be really combative. What do you think about this topic? Why are you even asking me? Leave me alone.
My very first interview, my very first video interview was more combative than Ditko. Harlan Ellison.
Ooh.
Nice.
Send a cub reporter in to talk to Harlan Ellison. Yeah.
But he talked to you though, right?
He did. He did talk to you.
Ditko would just say, hell no, and just that would be it.
Yeah.
Same thing with Alex Toth. I wouldn't mind an interview with Alex Toth, but I know he was a curmudgeon through practically all of his life, and he'd have just said no.
Yeah.
And that would have been it. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me see. For myself, I would still like to interview Bill Willingham, although he's done a few recently. But I'd like to cover like a very specific area of his work, and that would be like Ironwood. It's the stuff he did just after Elementals and before Fables. So it's a lot of that indie work that he did in between. So I would like to discuss that, like, because there's a few works he did, Pantheon, and then he did like 1 or 2 other books for the same company that were never completed. And I'm a big I have a big thing about completing my work, and I'm just like, why did you not finish this? When are you going to finish this? Why don't you finish this? I'm trying. I'm a fan. Finish it. Thanks. Move on.
I'm to finish Afterlife with Archie. So
Oh right. Yeah, that guy. Roger Zelazny is for someone who's no longer with us. I would love to interview Roger. But yeah, and then then there's guys like Neil Gaiman, like that would be fantastic, I think. And then Alan Moore. But the problem with Alan is you ask him one question and there's the hour. So
a lot of times, yeah.
Yeah, he's a very easy interview. I've listened. There was one guy who got real lucky a few years ago. There was a podcast, and I think he must have asked Alan like 3 questions, and then the interview was a good 70 minutes. Wow. But he only got in 3 questions. So and it's not like you're gonna stop Alan, right? You're not gonna stop him from talking. Like,
no, I had Neil Gaiman on the phone for 90 minutes 20 years ago. Interview.
Oh, nice,
sweet.
Yeah. What was this? Anne Margaret, slowly sexiest song ever. There you go. Zelazny is a great pick. What a great writer. Yes, he was.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
All right. So Mark, I guess you're up. Ask your question, sir.
Ooh, all right. I have 2 different ones. I'm debating on which one to go for. I guess let's go for the easy one. Co-hosts, how do you feel about them? How do you go about picking one? And what do you look for in a co-host?
Nice. We'll go with Mr. Vera. We'll work our way around this way.
It's chemistry. I started out with George, and so it was just only fitting when it was time to come back to go back to the roots. We know each other enough that we play off each other with the interviews. I know when George is like doesn't have a next question, I can read it. Even now with on the camera, I can see his face, and I'll jump in. And so we play off each other. So I think you just have to have a mutual respect and chemistry, and that's what makes it work. I'm glad I don't have to go out. Like for instance, if George decided, "Hey, I'm getting married, I'm no longer going to do the podcast," I'll just fly the ship solo from that point on.
Wow. All right.
Nice. Michael?
Well, at the moment, I'm not interested in a co-host. I find when you're doing a show with, it's just conversational, it kind of could throw off the conversation, or sometimes you're fighting for airtime. And I don't want I want my guests to be the star. I've said it all the time. I'm like, I may tell a short story, but I'm like, this show isn't about me. I want to get that story out quick and make them the focus. I don't want someone else who could take the focus away from my guest, But that's not to say that's how I feel right now. If I was someone like Sam and George and had that great chemistry where we could be back and forth and it was like just simple, where they understand it's the guest first, I'd totally be okay, come on, especially if I feel I might need help with a guest, but I'm good solo right now.
All right, cool. Randy?
Well, it's all of my broadcasts are like a group of friends talking anyway, so normally there's 2 or 3 co-hosts on there, as well as 1 or 2 people that we might not have on a regular basis, or somebody who wants to push a campaign. So it's not really a I've never really had the opportunity of flying solo, let's put it that way, at least not very much. And when I do, it's I'm really happy to have somebody else on the air to bounce off of. So
right.
And in my opinion, a co-host can, and again, I've run into, like what Michael has said, where you get a co-host on that it just sucks all the air out of the room. But there've also been guests that have are like exactly the opposite, and you just want to go, hey, thanks for coming on. We'll talk to you soon. See you later. That kind of thing. So really, it's a situational thing.
We've all had that guest on.
Yeah.
Right. RJ, how you feel about it?
Well, aside from co-hosts where I can put my words in their mouth, and run it that way, we do have other co-hosts that come on. Damascus Mintzmeyer is a writer for the website. He covers the horror scene as far as books and independent films go. And so when we get opportunities to interview those authors and those directors, I send the email to Damascus. I'm like, hey, your services are needed, sir. This is your area of expertise, not mine. And then I'll run the show, but then I become more of a producer than a host. I just kind of sit in the back and take care of the chat and the banners and such. Let him run it. Same if I'm going to interview a creator, a comic book creator. That's my jam. I know that area. But it's a creator who I know, a friend who's in the business, is like huge super fan, says, oh my God, if you ever get this guy, let me know. Then I'll say, I've got this guy. Would you like to co-host and help me with the questions on it? And then, I make a co-host giddy, and I can do less work. And it's always about doing less work.
Nice. For myself, I have a rotating group of co-hosts, right? So sometimes Mr. Rosario, who's not here, and by the way, Rosario, he has a new book on Kickstarter called The Storm Chasers. Go check it out, right? So there's your plug, Mr. Rosario. It's more than you deserve, but anyway, Rosario's a great guy, and I like him because he knows he knows about the business of comics, of indie comics, you know, and that's one of his key interests. He's a writer, he's a creator, he's all that jazz, but he's also very, very interested in that area. And you know, we work well off each other. We have a very similar background growing up. You know, we both grew up in New York. We both grew up in Brooklyn. He used to buy comics from my father's old grocery store. I mean, it was very strange, you know. So we have that camaraderie. Someone like Mark, very professional. You know, I hate saying this live on air because I'm like, his head is gonna explode. You know, but very professional. And as far as I'm concerned, one of the most, like I said, professional persons I've met doing this. You know, I mean, like the guy really knows his stuff. He's really on top of it. You know, Mark, just shut up. Say nothing. All right, just say nothing. All right, thank you. And then Jody Mcphee is another one that I occasionally have on, and Joe's excellent. He's another guy, very smart dude, and that's actually why I like having him on. He looks at things a little differently, like a little from a scant. He's like from a different angle, and so he brings like a different type of question to the conversation, and that's what I like. And that's typically why I have other co-hosts on, because I don't always want the questions coming from my perspective. I want to hear different angles, you know, of where people are in the industry, you know. So because like I said, I like to discuss a lot of the shows discussing the business of it. We're not doing much of that today, but that's cool, you know. But that's one of the things I like getting into, because I know people, new fans, they need to know the business end of this business, because you know, we all need that help. I need that help. I don't know anyone who doesn't, who's promoting and pushing books, you know. So that's how I look at it. So Mr. Mark, how do you do it?
When I first put the show together, like I said, it was for selfish reasons. I got my friends and I looked at all my friends and I asked the ones who I thought would be great to talk with, because I knew I couldn't do it by myself. And I found 3 people, and we played off each other. And at first we started talking over each other and listening back to the show. Because one thing I used to do is I used to listen to the show after it aired, and then I can critique it and I can see what needs to be done and fix it and adjust it. So once we got over not talking over each other, just having somebody from a different perspective, I found was the best. Like right now we have our senior correspondent. He knows all the old time stuff. We have a guy who is a comic book publisher, so he knows like the professional side. And then we have an actress who knows really nothing about the comic book world. And that was one of the original ideas, that I wanted to have somebody who didn't know anything about the subject that we were talking about, because they can ask questions that no one would even conceive to ask. Mm-hmm. And it also appeals to the general person. So if you're watching a Marvel movie, you go in there and you talk about, oh, I know this guy and he does this. But you ask somebody, why is that guy wearing a mustache or something? You're like, oh, I never thought to ask that question. And sometimes the question is really good. So I think just looking who would be the best combination, and you have to have that ability to play off each other. And I find that I cannot do it myself, because running your own show, as many of us knows, there's a lot of things you have to do behind the scenes, and it helps to have another person jump in there to help you out.
No, you're right. You're very much right. And your co-host is awesome, by the way.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. No, she interviewed me the last time I was on there. It was really cool. All right, Sam, you got another question? Since we're doing the round robin today.
Okay, so we talked about the things that frustrate you the most. What excites you the most about some of the guests that you've had on?
All right. Well, like I said, we're pushing it off. So Mike is here.
You know, what excites me is really just the ability to talk art. You know, I'm a fan of comics and animation. Those are my 2 passions. Those are why I try to bring those type of guests on. I don't care if they're a syndicated type of strip artist, which is my favorite type of art to look at, comics to look at, or if they're a book artist, or if they're a writer, an animator. If they're in the business, I get excited to talk to them. I've never had a guest on my show where I'm like, oh God, I don't want to talk to this person. I've had the times where I don't want to do the show because I've just maybe had a long day from my day job or I'm tired, but I've never ever had a guest I want to like, oh, I don't want to, this is filler type of, no, I'm excited to talk to everybody. And I just hope that I give a good interview, they give a good interview back, and we just have fun. So for me, it's really about just I haven't had one guest I can say I'm super excited to have on. If you could be passionate while we're talking, I'm excited to have that person on. So,
Nice.
Yeah.
Randy?
Well, for me, there's nothing like having somebody on the show that you've never talked to before, that you don't know, that's actually well spoken or speaks really well, and has an incredible campaign running on a product that you may have just barely seen or had never seen before. That is incredibly good or very professional looking, that you're proud to get out there and give a little notice to and have them promote their stuff, because it needs to get out there and promote it. A lot of these crowdfunded campaigns, the only advertising they really get are on podcasts like the ones that we do, and it makes me just ecstatic to help somebody out on their campaign who comes on, talks about their book. We see how great the book is, and to see their campaign bump up a little bit. That
Nice.
really means a lot for me.
All right, cool. RJ, what do you got?
Well, for me, I think it's just the excitement of seeing just how far this imposter syndrome can carry me. The people that I get on sometimes are people that I've loved their work. This is, I've been reading your stuff since I was a kid. Why are you stopping to talk to me? Because I have connection to the internet like you have. You don't need to do this. But yeah, it's just the opportunity to, they say don't meet your heroes. I've never found that to be the case. And it's there's a balance to it. There's the actual, you get to meet all these professionals and talk to them about what they've done in their career, and they're very, for the most part, very nice people. And then at the other end of it, you get all these new people who are just starting up, and you get to pass on the things that you learned from these pros through you to these new guys to give them encouragement, like it's coming from you, like you are now the mouth of the gods. So like that, it's a lot of imposter syndrome that keeps me afloat.
All right, cool. For myself, I like just talking to people in general. You know what I mean? I like meeting a new creator is like getting into a new headspace, is to like where their world is at, and that's the sort of thing that I really enjoy, is like what's your world? What are you looking at? And, try to drag me into that one, because I want to know. I'm always interested in visiting a new planet. So, and it's done through our visual medium, visiting these new worlds. So, that's what excites me, is just finding new works and finding new creators and being able to talk to them, and even talking to the old ones, the people I've spoken to a number of guys, like 4 or 5 interviews, and it's always fun just revisiting those areas. Those are some of my toughest interviews, because then I have to really actually work those days. Mark, what do you got?
What gets me excited? Let's see. I would guess the opportunities that come along my way. We just this week got a press pass to New York Comic Con. That always blows my mind that we
Nice.
get an actual press pass. Like, oh my God, I'm a legitimate press guy. It's mind-boggling to me. And just meeting people who you never thought you would meet through the show. There's a lot of people who I've come into contact. I'm gonna name drop here. My Mark Hamill story.
Mm-hmm.
We were at a convention, New York Comic Con. We were walking around the show floor. There was a person dressed up as a giant gazelle walking around, and I was like, "Well, what's this guy going?" We took us to the table because they were selling some comics, and we walked up to him. Was like, "Hey, what's going on here? We're press." And somebody comes out from the back. He goes, "You're press? Hey, would you like an interview with Mark Hamill?" I was like, "Holy crap!" We're like, "Yes, we would." So it's that kind of stuff that blows my mind, of the opportunities and the excitement of things that we've had to do.
Nice. Okay. Mr. Sam, answer your question, sir.
For me, it's when the guest is more excited about and passionate about what they do, and they're bringing a new approach to the game, where when you've been in the game for for a long time, you didn't really think about, right? And so they inspire you, where they're passionate and they're really going out there and trying to
Hello, friend.
create their own destiny beyond what is the norm. You know what I mean? So we've had some amazing guests. And you know if you got me, because now I'm all in. It's like, there's nothing there more important than listening to this cat that's in front of me, because this, you can see that this person has a bright future. So those are the ones that get me excited.
Nice. Okay, cool. I know, Michael, I was going to ask you to ask a question, but actually I want to fanboy for a minute.
Okay.
Or not even so much fanboy. What it is, we lost two great masters in the last week, right? We lost Neil Adams, God rest his soul. We lost George Perez, God rest his soul. So I know for myself, both of these men were very important to my life as far as it being comics. I met Neil once, and it's crazy that I haven't met him more because we were in New York. And I met George once, and same thing. We were in New York for a little while, and I've been to a few conventions with him. But their work was very important to me. So my question to you guys all is what works from those gentlemen you most remember? So if you could pick one and one, that'd be cool. And we'll start with Michael.
Perez, it'll always be the New Teen Titans. I was always a fan of the sidekicks. And one of the first books I bought, Perez was a writer and I think inker on. It was a Secret Origins annual from 1989, and it retold the story of Dick Grayson going from Robin to Nightwing. So it wasn't really his art in there, although he did ink and he wrote it. But the characters that he created, the way he handled that team, and when I started getting into comics, I went back and started reading his older stuff. Same thing with Neil. I went back and read the older stuff. I was 13 in 1989. I started collecting and buying books, and by the 90s, I was buying, the trades that I could find or older issues. And with Neil, God, was it might have been that probably the issue where Speedy was on drugs. That one's probably sticks out, because again, I was always the sidekick fan. I saw a sidekick character, I picked him up. So
all right. Nice. Okay, cool. Randy, what do you got?
Neil did so many iconic covers. It's just it would be totally impossible to choose a good one, or the best one, I should say. But for Neil, one of the early Batman stories that he did that involved the Joker, probably changed the direction of Batman in general, with Denny O'Neil doing the writing. That had a big effect on me as far as making superheroes a little bit more dramatic. And that I got to talk to Neil maybe twice at a show. Got him to sign my sketchbook once, and got to watch as he literally tore apart somebody's portfolio. Well, not literally, but figuratively tore apart somebody's portfolio, which is a very interesting experience, especially if you're not on the receiving end of it. You're like going, "Whoa, buddy, you really want to, is that, you call that an ear, kid? That ain't an ear," that kind of thing. On the other hand, George was completely the opposite. George always had a spark in his eye. The first time I met George, I told the story this morning. We were in line at a Chicago con waiting to get things signed by Stan Lee back before he was charging for autographs. And it would only sign 3 things at once, but the line was long. So we sat there in this long line all the way through the hotel, multiple floors, waiting to get Stan's autograph. And when I got up to him, it was just as Arrow Comics had come out back in '85. And I wanted to give Stan a couple copies of the books that we were doing. The black and white boom was going on. A lot of people were doing that as well. And because we owed a lot to Stan. I mean, everybody in this business does. And George was sitting next to him. We knew who George was, but he was sitting next. He wasn't sitting next to him, set up next to him. He had come over to talk to Stan informally. And I come up and handed him the book, and he jumped out of his chair literally and said, "You're Randy Zimmerman. You do Tales from the Aniverse. Your stuff is great." And how do you handle something like that? I took 2 steps back and went, I like your stuff too, George. You know, that's about all you could do. But back when I was doing Flint Comics, a local comics newspaper, I was fortunate to have George actually draw one of my characters. So if you ask me what piece of art of George's that I would prefer, it would be this one. It's he drew the Spark character there, because he had an association going on with 2 of the contributors that I had in the paper, Lane and Perry Toth. And Lane's character is here. That's Lucky, the one-eyed stray dog. And Perry, who was younger, had a character here called See-Through Baby. And I had the 50th issue coming up of the paper, and I really wanted to have something special for the cover. And we were at a Motor City Con, took George out to dinner, and George agreed to do the work as long as he could pencil it and Lane would ink it, which really freaked Lane out at the time, because she had never inked over somebody's work, let alone George Perez, you know. So she sat there and when she was done with the work, it was incredible. She did an incredibly professional job with it. And then we had Paul Sizer do the colors for the piece, and we incorporated it into the cover. But we also got to interview him, or the girls got to interview him, about his 10 favorite drawings that he had ever done. And that made for an interesting center spread article for our paper. And we'll always be grateful to George, not just for what he did or his mark, the work that he did in the industry, but the way he treated the industry. He was always professional, and he always had that light in his eyes, that spark of fun, that passion that I think any entertainment industry needs to have, or anybody working in the industry really has to have, in order to get them through the good times as well as the tough times. So he's a big promoter of sequential art, and always be grateful for what little association I had with him.
Nice. RJ, what do you got?
Wow. Well, for Neil Adams, it would be my Batman number 232, the first appearance of Ra's al Ghul. I have Denny O'Neil's signature on it. I did not get Neil Adams. Never got him. I did, of course. I had an independent comic friend when I was very young, who went to a convention and had his portfolio critiqued by Neil, and he came back and said, "Neil Adams said that my work was masturbation. It produced nothing and only made me feel good." I'm like, okay. For George Perez, it's got to be New Teen Titans. I was a Teen Titans fan back in the Haney-Carty era, so I was primed for that group to come back, and it took me a while to get used to these new characters who weren't sidekicks. They just kind of came from nowhere, but I warmed up to them. And then I got to really being impressed though by his Justice League covers that he did during that run. They were amazing. I have no original art from George Perez. I do have the giant Teen Titans poster that came out in 1983, I want to say.
Yeah.
Framed right here on my wall, right next to me here. And I did tweet out a picture the other day that at 54 years old, I still had a bit of naivete that was allowed to be chipped away. A friend of mine did have some original George Perez artwork, and it was Starfire and Nightwing, and she was fully nude in bed, and Grayson was, undressing to get in there with her, and it was called The Birth of a Teen Titan. Because I had never seen him, I'd seen him draw Saxon violence. I'm like, okay, well, he will do that. But I had not seen him do it with his Teen Titans characters until that moment.
Nice.
I grew up a little bit more then.
All right. We'll go Sam, and then we'll hit the code. So Sam, what do you got?
For me, Neil Adams, I think it would be Conan. That was what introduced me to him, and so I'll always remember that. And then the fact that at the Big Apple Comic Con, we have him on episode 115, where Michelle Martin was our field reporter at the time, and so she did a live interview with him, and it was an extended interview, so it was really dope that he stood there as long as they really hit it off, and it was a really good interview. So I was very happy with that. I didn't have a chance to go and talk to him myself because I was at my table. I'm promoting my books. And I guess with George Perez, it'll always be Infinity Gauntlet. I pull that book out every year, the graphic novel. And I remember a time when I was at Pittsburgh Comic-Con. It was one of the several times where he retired. Well, this one was one of his retirement things. And so I have a great table, but it happens to be the line is directly going through the hotel for him just to get signed, and they're all blocking all of us independents that have our table blocked. And we're like, this is some bullshit. And so it's like, no, that's my only memory, because I was like, there's no way I'm gonna get on, because I wanted to get on. I said, I'm not getting on that line. That's like the Great Adventures, and so I regret that decision, but I was a little annoyed at the fact that I couldn't even get to people because this line was just, and they weren't even paying attention to any of us because they were just focused on him. So those are my two memories.
I have the same kind of memory, only it was Jim Lee.
Nice.
And we were at a con, and the line for Jim Lee went right through Artist Alley. So we weren't getting out anywhere. We weren't talking to, except for people walking by. Hey, have you ever read my book? No, I'm waiting in line for Jim Lee. Oh, okay. Well, And but on the plus side, I was able to walk out and get some autographs signed by Robert Crumb and Harvey Pekar.
Nice.
That were at the show at the time and had nobody around them.
Wow.
Nice. Yeah, we had Daphne and I had a similar situation. Who was the gentleman who created Ghost Rider and got into a lot of trouble? The writer?
Mike Friedrich.
Yes. So he was signing. He was 3 or 4 tables in front of us. And there was a huge line in front of us. It's all the Ghost Rider people. And Daphne's telling him, like, look, guys, can you just push back away from our table so we can get people in? And she got into an argument with one of the guys, with one or two of the fans. She's like, oh, really? Oh, really? You want to see Ghost Rider? And she drew a small sketch of Ghost Rider. There's Ghost Rider. The guy was like, I'll give you $20. So she sat there. I don't know how many she did, but I know she did. I think she did two or three sketches for these guys. It was kind of funny. So Mark, what do you got as far as
Neil Adams? So I was mostly a Marvel guy, so I really didn't have the exposure to Neil. My first exposure to him was coming back from San Diego Comic-Con in 2008. He was on the same plane as I was. I was like, hey, that guy looks familiar. I think he's a comic book artist. But then years later at New York Comic Con, we actually, one of my co-hosts got to interview him, a brief interview. That was the only time I ever interacted with his people, because I was always afraid to go up to Neil myself because of all the stories I heard about him. I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that. But I've met his kids, and his kids are wonderful. I've talked more with the kids than I have with him. As for George, I'm going to have to go with the Infinity Gauntlet, that first cover of the first issue. Because I remember I used to go to this little candy store right next to my high school, and every week I used to go in there to get the new comics, and I saw this image. I was like, oh, this is the best thing ever. And I took it and I read it, and I was like, holy crap, I didn't know that was the same guy that did the Crisis of Infinite Earths. So I actually went back and had to find the back issues of all that stuff. I was like, wow, this guy loves the space stuff and all this kind of thing. And then I met him at New York Comic Con, and we just got to talk for a little bit. He had a huge line, but he made it a point to stop and talk to every single person that came up to him. And I thought that was the height of an artist that has a long line that can stop and take time for the fans. So that meant more than me than anything else, to wait on the line, go up to him, and just 2 or 3 questions. He was happy to talk to people. The only other time I've had an experience like that was with Peter David. He's my favorite writer of all time, and he used to have tons and tons of lines when he was doing the Hulk. But he used to sit there and he used to have conversations with people, and he used to sign as many books as you wanted. And so people were like, I can't believe the line is so long. It's like, well, he's taking time to talk to people, and when you get up there, you're going to have your chance. So I appreciate that of George, was that chance I got to actually speak with him and appreciate his work.
That is my, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that is my Peter David story that I take with me to the grave. That I met him at a Chicago Comic-Con in the late 80s, and there was a young man in front of me with his older father, and the young man was very clearly visually developmentally challenged. And he had a stack of Hulks that was almost as tall as he was. And everybody behind me in line was like, this isn't going to go well for him. And he got to the front of the line, and Peter David signed the first 5 books on the stack, then took the next person. And then he signed the next 5 books on the stack, and he took the next person. And he did that until he signed every damn one of that kid's books.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
That's awesome. I actually got confused for Peter David at a show. It was from the back.
You mention it.
At New York Comic Con, I was waiting in line, for the show my badge and everything, and I hear this woman from Peter David, and he's one of my favorite writers. And I'm looking around, where's Peter David? I've never met him. And Peter David. I'm looking around. Finally, this woman comes and taps me on the back. Peter David, and I turn around. And she goes, "You're not Peter David." I'm like, "No, I'm not." So I guess from the back, me and Peter looked alike. And look, he's a great guy. I've met him a bunch of times, and I have a bunch of his comic books, like the novels and stuff that he's written, and it's fantastic. I love everything that he puts
His
out.
novelizations of films are so much better than the films.
Yes.
The book he did, Batman Forever, is actually a passable story under his.
Yeah. It's nice. Good stuff. I got a bunch of things from him, but yeah, and what was the last one I bought from him? It was his own take on Oliver Twist off one of the characters. I don't remember, but he was like, I really tried to capture the original author's style of writing, and I'm like, I'm gonna check this out. So I picked it up. I'll be honest, it's been years. I haven't finished it. It was one of those things I started reading, I put down, never got back to, but I was like, this is really, really good. So.
Imperium says, I get confused for Ogden Whitney all the time. Okay, I guess none of us knows who Ogden Whitney is.
Oh, Mr. Whipple. Okay, I know Mr. Whipple is.
There you go. Dojo Code. What's up, Dojo? He says, "Hail Indy Comics Explained." What's up, Dojo? How you doing?
Oh, see, he's a comic book artist who did Herbie.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, the Fat Fury.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love that stuff. That was actually the Fat Fury was one of my first published works in a fanzine that someone asked me to do.
Mm.
And they asked me because my character Plunger Pup wore a plunger on his head. He's like, "You're a fan of the Fat Fury?" I'm like, "I know him, and I'm like, no," and he told me about it, so I ended up drawing that character. He's like, "Could you draw it for a fanzine?" I said, "Sure."
Herbie Hoppenpecker.
Yeah.
Hoppenecker.
What was it, 96, 97,
Hoppenecker.
something like that? I did that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I know for myself, I think my favorite stuff from George is Crisis on Infinite Earth, and also the history of the DC universe that he did.
Yes.
That came out soon after that. And then for the Teen Titans, which is where I started with him, is the Judas Contract, and that was where Robin turns into Nightwing. And that was that story. That's obviously Marv Wolfman wrote it, but that was for me one of my favorites. And then his Wonder Woman run, man, I could just stare at that all day long.
Oh, that was gorgeous.
Yeah,
Still the best Nightwing costume.
I actually have to change my answer to Crisis on Infinite Earths for George, because that was the book that run was what got me buying comic books. My cousin had the run, and I read it at his house, and while we were I forgot George did that. I don't know why, but that was my introduction to reading comics. Because before then, it was only watching like the Super Friends where I got and like those shows as cartoons where I got the DC heroes, and I always preferred them to Marvel. And then when my cousin had the book, I'm like, what the hell is all this? What's going on? This is amazing. So yeah, I'll have to change my George answer to Crisis.
No, I got you, man.
We'll allow it.
Yeah.
Yep. What is it? And for Neil, I've told this story before, but it's being in New York. Everybody rides the trains here. So on the subways, when I was in high school, they had these ads, and they were like movie poster ads, 24x36. They put them up on the walls, and it was for Armor, Silver Streak, Megalith, right? His Continuity Comics books, and it was the covers. I thought they were movies that were coming out because there was no indication that they weren't movies. And then I remember one day walking into a comic book store that we had around here called the Batcave, and I went in there, and there they were, Megalith, Armor, Silver Street. Fell in love with continuity comics, and that's like, as far as, well, they're one of my favorite indie comics ever. Like just artistically, the stories were, they were okay, but the artwork is always incredible. Rudy Nebris, it introduced me to Rudy Nebris, who I've met a few times at conventions, and Rudy Nebris is incredible. And if Rudy inked somebody's work, Rudy inked it, because it always looked like Rudy Nebris, and it doesn't matter who it was. And I can see why Neil hired him, because it's just incredible. But yeah, those books were always my favorites. Those characters, Miss Mystic, all those books. So, what is this? Tank Fairy Princess says, "Hail all of you magnificent bastards! My parents are married."
Oh, Tank.
It's like to remind everybody of that. Anyway, all right, so we'll go back, but yeah, I just wanted to get everybody's take on those, because we lost, two fantastic creators. I mean, two, like, and it's like two guys who could still be working today, and everybody be like, yeah, like there's no one in this business that would not hire them.
Right.
Nobody
in their right mind, at least.
Well, correct. Yes. Yeah. Nobody in their right mind. But Neil didn't he just recently do just about a year ago, did that Fantastic Four thing with Mark Waid?
Yeah.
I think he also did a Batman run not too long ago.
Yeah, like 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah. So it's not like he wasn't working. The only thing that stopped George, he got a little sick, right?
Yeah.
If George was healthy, he'd still be working. I think John Pacino worked till the day he died.
I think George had eye problems the last 10 years or so.
Right.
As well.
Right,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, so it's crazy. All right. I think we were up to Mr. Gracias as far as questions go.
Yeah, and we've talked so much. I think I've forgotten my question. Hold on, though. Give me 1 second. I had a few. They were in my head. I didn't write them down. I wasn't smart enough to do that. You know what? I okay. Here's one of my questions for all of you, and I know this might be different for Sam, because Sam basically does this full time. For most of us, I believe we all have other gigs outside of the podcasting. How much time do you guys devote not just to being on the air, but spending your time researching, finding guests, promoting, doing all that stuff? Because I find, I have some medical issues and stuff that kind of slow me down at times, but for the most part, I can't be thinking about my podcast 24/7. I have a day gig, I have freelance work when I come home, and I have my own projects I'm doing. This is just kind of something more I find fun to do, and it gives me a nice break from my day. So how much are you into how much of your podcast is part of your, I guess, daily routine? If you're only doing it once a week, twice, whatever, how do you incorporate that into your life without going nuts, I guess, is the best way to do it.
Nice. Okay, cool. Randy, you're up.
Well, for my stock answer would be none. I don't have enough time to devote to it. But for the Zimcast on Wednesday nights, where we talk about different things, as I go through the week, if I find an article that I want to discuss on the program, I'll bookmark it, and then we'll discuss it on the program and go from there. Sunday mornings, most of the time when I start the Sunday morning program by saying I have no idea what to talk about, I have no idea what to talk about. I'm just lucky enough to get a couple of people on, especially on a Sunday morning, who are awake enough to talk about comics. So, and that happens.
It's a great show. I do watch the show on Sundays. I've missed a few, but yeah, I try to catch that every Sunday when I can.
And for me, I don't have enough time to do the research on that, because I would really like to. There's so many people, and like I said before, older creators that I would love to have on the program just to talk to them about the work. and what they enjoy, that kind of thing. Because when you've been in this business long enough, and that's something I learned pretty early on, that if you don't love this business, you're not in this business. So you go out and you find something else to do where you can actually make a living. And so finding those people like George Perez, who gets that spark in their eye, and that you just can't help but see the passion for the art form come through. Those are the kind of people I really want to have on Sunday morning. So, and I don't find enough of those. Luckily, Glenn B. Fleming's been pretty regular on the show, and he gives a good perspective. But for him, I'm talking to him in his afternoon. He's over in Britain. And now we've got Daphne on Sunday mornings most of the time, and she's got that spark too, that sometimes she gets exuberant. I guess would be the easiest way to talk about it, her passion for this business. So
Daphne's an easy interview.
Yeah.
All right, cool. RJ, what do you got?
What was the question?
Oh no, basically it was your time you're putting in. How much of this are you devoting, or how much of your weekly, daily life, whatever, are you devoting to your podcast to make it, I guess, make it as good as you can make it?
All of it with overlap. I mean, we do a podcast Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night. I take off Fridays simply because I'm going to be somewhere and I don't want to have to rush home. Saturday night, every other Saturday night, we do the LCS Guys show where we talk with retailers about what's going on at the front lines, what's selling, what's not, what they think about things. Sunday night, we do an open mic night. And then the Saturdays that we don't do the LCS Guys show, we'll either bring on a guest or I'll pop over somewhere else that somebody else is doing the stream and talk to them. And it's, and I have a day job, by the way. I'm 35 in the IT industry, which, I'm still working from home doing that. So that's where the overlap is like, I'm writing code at the same time I'm answering emails on a different computer about, people coming on the show or wanting to get into the, hey, how much to distribute our book. So while I'm planning the show, I'm packaging up books and running, data queries for other campaigns that, I'm maybe not distributing, but, they want the data cleaned up so they can have nice pack lists, make it go faster. It's a 24/7 thing. Okay. I sleep about 5 hours a day. No, literally, my bed's right here. I get out of this bed, I sit in this chair. My food is in this pantry over here. I told you, this is where I live.
Wow. Okay.
Are you like in a bunker somewhere that we don't know about?
I'm subletting a room in an apartment.
RJ's living it though. He's in it.
This is my life on camera.
Nice. Mr. Sam, you've been called out.
The podcast used to take up a lot of my time. Prior to, I decided to invest in Calendly, and now they just go and they book themselves on the slots that we dedicated as the slots for guests. So we haven't looked for a guest in about 18 months. Wow. They just keep coming, so we've been very fortunate about that. So it used to take up a lot of my time, but now with Calendly, it gets booked, and then so we used to do Tuesdays and Wednesdays live Kickstarters. In June, that changes because our show was founded on really talking to the creator about their journey and their craft and the inspirations, and the Kickstarter just became, you don't really get to know about them. It's just really plug. So we changed that format. Now we're still going to interview them, but they won't be live. They'll go on a Friday slot, pre-recorded. We want our live shows to really go and talk to the guest and really get to know about the guest more so than the product and how they got to creating the product. So what happens is on Monday mornings, I get up in the mornings after I'm done working out. I'll record the Crazy 10 or Less. I'll edit it. I'll upload it. It's there. It's a 10-minute show. Tuesday nights and Wednesday nights, we have 4 shows. One at 7, one at 8. So I don't create the thumbnails until Tuesday morning for those shows, and I'll send the links the day of for the show. I stopped sending the links several days before because sometimes they don't show up. So I'll send it the day of. because then you'll find out sometimes they cancel the day of. And then the morning brew on Thursday mornings, I'll send George. I'll get up in the morning and I'll send George the link that morning, and we do the show. So I don't do any editing with the pre-recording either. So I always tell him, I said, whatever you say is going to stay here. I'm not going and cutting it out. So be mindful of that. I'm not editing it. So we're just going to run through it and just keep it moving. Just like we do in a live show. I don't edit live shows. I'm not going to edit the pre-recorded show. So I try to dedicate most of my time to creating my books and writing my stories and drawing. And so it used to be 60% of my time was the podcast. Now it's about 30%.
Cool. Mr. Mark, what do you got?
My answer is depends on the week, but we're a weekly show, and pre-pandemic, post-pandemic is two different lives I've had. I would say if you added it all up, probably 4 to 5 days out of the week. Currently, I'm working on some way, shape, or form on the show, either networking, emailing, whatever. The actual show we record once a week. Just getting all the slots together. I have to listen to the show at least 3 or 4 times for timing purposes, and then editing, because if you get a curse on the air and somebody complains about it, that's a $10,000 fine. So I don't have $10,000 to pay, and I don't want to pay $10,000 even if I had $10,000 to pay.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it really depends on the week. I would say on weeks of live shows, which is next week, it's more engaging, I find, because it's a lot of stuff that I don't have to do, but I kind of set aside certain days for certain things out of the week, and then I have a lot of downtime. I am not like Sam, which is just go, 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 go. I don't have that kind of energy. I'm old. It doesn't work like that anymore. I don't know how you do it. There's some people, I don't know how they do it. There's one guy I want to give a shout out, Michael Kingston. He does a comic book called Headlock. And that man, he just goes all the time. I don't know how that's the guy who had the dock fire, who didn't show for our show, but he is working his 9 to 5 job or whatever time it is. Plus he's going to conventions in different states every single weekend. Plus he's making a book. He's working with wrestlers. He's doing so much stuff. And I'm looking like, I get tired just looking at you. I don't know how you do it. So Sam, you're on that level for me. I always see you doing all that stuff. Like, nope, I can't do that. I just die. So at my pace, I'm pretty much as high as I can go.
Nice. For myself, you know what it is? I'm kind of like a binger. What I'll do is I'll pick a night. Usually it's Wednesday night, and I will contact 10 creators. And I'll be like, "Do you want to be on my show? Do you want to be on my show? Or my show?" And then I'll just do that really quick. And I mean, and it's cut and paste time for me. I'm working fast, and I'm just trying to do it as economically as I can, because I have to get to my writing, right? So it's just like, okay, let me do this quickly. And then, if you look at my thumbnails that I have for the shows, they're templates. I created the template a while ago. I was like, all right, I drop in their cover, I drop in my cover for the Sunday show. I just drop in one of my covers. I fill in all the new names. I pray that I spelled everything correctly. Just move on, and then get the show notes in. Oh, and just to let everybody know, everybody's links are in the show notes, or at least I hope I got everybody's links in the show notes. So go check out everybody's podcast, because all of these people here, all of them do awesome podcasts. All of them. All of them. So yes. So and that's, I take a few minutes of that, and then I have the same Word file for all of them. So what I do is at the bottom, I just push them down, and then I'll just recopy or repaste because I have a lot of repeats. So I'm like, okay, we'll just put this guy back in the rotation or whatever. So yeah, but I don't know, 2 or 3 hours, I guess, prep. Depending on the week. Sometimes I didn't interview anybody this week. But there'll be some weeks I'll interview 2 people. Sometimes I'll interview 3 people. It just depends on who gets in touch with me, and how and I'm always open to do stuff fairly last minute. Give me a couple of days, I'll usually have you on. It's not a problem. And in this show, I usually only book it a week out, but I started booking this one 3 weeks out for some reason, and so I had last week booked, this week booked, and I have next week booked. When I'm like, whoa. I did my work in advance. This is crazy, because I normally don't do that. So yeah, but I found that that works actually well. So I might do that for the next couple of weeks. coming up. So there's always something. There's always a campaign. There's always somebody who wants to talk about their stuff, and that's the one thing I find fascinating. There's just so many people, and we skim the top. That's the craziest thing. There's probably 100 plus Kickstarters out there, right?
A day.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's what, maybe another 30 or 40 IGGs going on, maybe more. Maybe
I mean,
50.
we had to we just turned away 20 people that because they last minute. Oh, I have a Kickstarter, but we're booked. We're booked through June, and so I'm like, I'm sorry, but we can't fit you in. You just hit us up at least 2 months before your campaign, so this way you don't have a problem. Yeah, but they just come out, and I'm like, I don't know who these guys are, but they just come out of the woodworks, and there's just so many. Every day I look, I see another 10 new campaigns.
Yeah. And I'm unlike Sam. I have people reach out to me, not quite that many, thankfully. I probably lose my mind. I'll be like, well, I guess we're all going on the Sunday show. It's like, here we go, even the live boxes. All right, everybody, it's gonna be one of those shows. I just show everybody's campaigns. But yeah, probably about 2 or 3 hours a week, and yeah, I'm active, and I actively, the one thing I actually do want to do is I want to reach out. I've discussed this with Randy, with some of the older creators who were indie creators, and start interviewing them. There's one guy who breaks my heart that I haven't done it yet, but he's like, he sent me his phone number, and I was like, I'm like, do you know what StreamYard is? And it's, he just couldn't do it. So I got to set up my Skype account, and I have to interview him there for and I picture the interview probably being 2 or 3 hours because of I feel his history in indie comics. You know what I mean? Like the interview is probably gonna be 2 or 3 hours, and I'll probably chop it up into hour segments or whatever. But yeah. But that one, I literally have to take a couple days, and then on top of that, he's one of the ones that I have to go back and reread the work and really have these questions formulated for him because it's the thing of discovery, but it's the thing I have questions. If I interview, it's one of the reasons I didn't reach out to Bill Willingham yet, because I got to dig out all those old books, reread them, write down my questions, and then really get into it. Be like, okay, all right, buddy, why haven't you finished this? And don't give me that bullshit that it's about the money. You always say that. I don't want to hear that.
I agree with you. I mean, there's a list of old school creators that I want to talk to, but I'm doing my research right now because out of respect for their craft and what they've contributed to the game. So for me, it's like, you get a lot of the Kickstarters, they're new to the game. You don't know anything about them. They just show up.
Yep.
But when the guys have history, you really want to acknowledge that history, and you want to really pull some things from there and have a really good conversation. So there's a list that I have that I'm just digging into crates and just working, educating myself.
Yeah, that's cool. Randy, I think you're up again, bro. You got a question? And I know you were.
Well, the question that comes to mind is kind of a self-serving question. When you're not podcasting, when you're just listening or watching stuff on YouTube, what are the YouTube channels that you go to?
That's a good question. RJ, what do you got?
Asian Tube Vlogs. Watch the Sunday Bunnies.
Oh, that's funny. Thank you. I should have said other than ours. So.
That's appointment television. I also go to Sci-Fi for Me TV and watch Jason's show there. And then I'll bounce around. I've got a lot. I'm subscribed to way more channels than I watch. It's almost like a Twitter follow sometimes. But yeah, those are definitely can't miss shows.
All right, cool. Mr. Sam, what do you got?
Raging was one I used to listen to, and again, rest in peace, Meredith. All the time because when I worked out, because it was always early, and I was always working out, and it was great to listen to. And sometimes I'll just say hello. I'll pop in on your Sunday Funnies and just listen.
Thanks for that.
But I listen. But outside of comics, for me, I'm always on Joe Rogan. On Patrick Bet David podcast. I listen to Brilliant Idiots podcast. So I listen to a lot of different podcasts. All depends on my mood. If when I'm drawing, I'll put on one of the. I'll see it because again, I'm subscribed to a lot of podcasts, and so I mean, I don't know how many. The YouTube channels like 3,000 I'm subscribed to, whatever. But so I'll see live, and so on. Let's see what that conversation is about. And if the conversation interests me, then I'll stay. If it doesn't, I'll move on to something else. It all depends on what's happening at that time.
All right, cool. Michael?
Podcast wise, it's a little. My YouTube is not like a lot of podcasts often. I tend to watch my friends. Like I'll catch some of Sam's stuff there and things that Nerds of the Round have done, and a few other shows that I'll sometimes just look up podcasts with artist interviews. I have a friend. He goes online now by the Izzyverse. He just started a few months ago, and he's getting a couple of really interesting artists on. But I tend to listen to YouTube videos about history, mythology. I like stories. So even though I like listening to the podcast and seeing what my friends are doing and hearing what's going on and hearing about artists, I just like to hear people talk about stories. Some days I'm just in the mood to listen to Tolkien podcasts all day, and I'll listen to about Lord of the Rings, or even though I know this stuff, whatever it is, or I'll just be like, not gonna lie, lately I've been watching the Johnny Depp trial and cracking up on that. But yeah, it's kind of more history, mythology, science stuff, or I'm just in the mood to look up what is it? Oh God, what's that one I do like that they go through the comics? Cartoonist Kayfabe.
Yes.
I like that when they have a really good like artist on, not even their interviews, just they're looking at books, and they're going through I love seeing that. That's one I won't say I watch kind of regular, but I watch at least three times a month. I'll find stuff I haven't seen of theirs.
I had to stop watching that program.
Really?
Why?
Because I wasn't getting any work done.
And that's what tends to happen. Yeah.
And it got to be really irritating. I'm like, oh, an hour's gone by. I haven't done nothing except watch these guys open a book and go through and marvel at it. And I'm like, yeah, I want to get that book. I want to get that. This is pretty cool. That's awesome. And then boom, an hour's gone, and you're like, oh, need to get work done.
Gosh.
What science stuff do you listen to?
Oh, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I could look up the channels I follow and send them to you. But when it comes to science, I've always been kind of into like outer space, a lot of that type of stuff. Solar systems and technology that's happening in space travel or satellites and all that type of stuff. I just love. I don't remember the names of channels. I literally have, I think, over 100 subscriptions to different channels.
Really, that's awesome. Yeah.
Well, a lot of my stuff also is educational. I do a lot of teaching and stuff, so I have a lot of channels just refer to my students, be like, oh, you're learning After Effects or something. Here's a great channel to watch for After Effects. Or this guy did a great video on, whatever. And it's usually so I don't have to sit and make a video for them. But so I have a lot, probably a good 30 or 40 channels are educational channels that I don't even watch. I just go to occasionally to see what's going on, about what, and then I'll be like, okay, this is great for a student. Let me like save that video or something. So I write it down.
Nice. Cool. Mr. Mark, what do you got? What do you listen to?
For podcasts, usually this is how it works. I go on to Facebook, I scroll down my feed, if somebody knows has somebody, let me know, click on that and see what's going on. I'll hang out for a little bit and then I rinse and repeat. So I've wound up seeing a Sam show. I've seen the Indy Comics Explained every once in a while. Randy, you're on too early, so I can't get up that early for that. I don't watch that at all.
We're always archived. Maybe I should start planning links more often in my timeline.
That might help, because if I don't see it, I'm like, I'll just go on something else. But if I see it, I like, let me check it out. Give them a. I always make sure I like it. And I know I specifically for Sam, because he's like, make sure you comment. So I always make sure I listen to the 10 minutes less. And I always do my best to give a comment on that.
Yes. You've also given me topics.
Oh, well, all right then.
Yes.
As for non-podcast stuff, there was this one guy who did a Power Ranger reviews of TV shows. I'm a huge Power Ranger fan, so I watched this stuff. He actually stopped. He quit the channel this past week. So I'm like, WWE. Oh, not W. What Culture? I like those wrestling guys. They do a different bunch of series, so I listened to 2 of them because they rate the WWE SmackDown and Raw. And so I don't have to watch the show. I just watch what they have to talk about it. I'm like, all right, I'm caught up. I don't need to waste 3 hours out of my life. I'll just waste 20 minutes and see what they have to say about it. And that's about it. There's a couple of ins and outs. I love to see Dusk. I think it's called Dust or Dusk. It's a sci-fi independent film channel. And they're always making new sci-fi indie shorts or concepts that I have tons of great stuff on there. You just go on there and you see different types of movies, short, long. I think it's called Dust, D-U-S-T. I think that's it, yeah. And of course, like I said, I listen to my show at least 3 times, but that's for work purposes. So I don't even enjoy it.
What do you mean you don't enjoy your work? That's terrible, Mark.
I don't enjoy my show because I'm listening as objectively to listen to it. I can't like, oh yeah, that's a good show. No, I'm like, all right, what's wrong? What do I got to fix? Because as you all know, when you're on the show, it sounds different than when you're listening to the show afterwards.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I don't watch my own stuff.
Yeah. I was once in a blue moon, I'll re-listen to one of my someone who's interviewing me, right? And I think I was on one. And I mean, if you were to play a drinking game, and for every time I said either I think is or you die within the first 30 minutes. I'm pretty sure of it. So yeah, I know all about listening to myself, and it's one of those. And the problem usually is I'm tired. Like I'll do a full day of work, and then I'll go on somebody's podcast after I've eaten. So I have the itis, and I had a full day of work by me. So I'm like, yeah, so it's just a lot of that. It's just, you try to be as cogent as possible, yeah. But after a long day, it's just like, okay, I'm kind of beaten out, but. Indie Comic, what is it? What are these guys? I got a list here. I listen to Perch. If anybody listens to that guy.
Yeah, occasionally I'll pull him up too.
Yeah, Perch and his buddy. What is
Thinking
that?
Critical.
Thinking Critical. The only problem I've had with them recently is that there's too much bitching. You know what I mean? It's like I like them both, but it's a lot of bitching. It's just like Marvel and this, you know what? I mean, listen, I guess that's their thing. They're fans of those things and they want to get into that big money thing. And I'm the exact opposite. I'm the indie guy, and I'm not really concerned about money and that stuff, because if I was, I wouldn't be doing indie comics. But but it's just too much bitching. Is this like, all right, so stop reading it. Right?
Yeah.
Stop reading it. Stop buying it. Stop reading it. If this is all your channel is based on, you might want to start covering something else. What is it? And then
you got to buy it, and then you got to burn it. That'll show them.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah. Bag it and burn it. Yeah, there you go.
He's still not ripping it in half. I haven't seen anybody rip a comic in half in quite a while.
Yeah, that's true.
Years now.
Yeah, Kayfabe is one of the ones I listen to. The cartoonist Kayfabe.
Yeah.
Dan Sheehan, once in a while, he has on a good guest. And then Jerk Comics. I don't know if you guys ever heard.
Yeah, no, I've actually talked to him about getting him on my show, and then we just never had the time to sync up. He really gets he tells his stories very well.
Yeah.
Gets a lot of research, does tons and tons of stuff.
Mm-hmm. No, he's actually pretty. I like his. And then I do what Mark does. I'll scroll through on a Saturday night typically, and I'll see who's on, and I'll just click on, and I'll just stay for a few minutes, Or if sometimes I'm even at work and I listen. There's a period of work within an hour where I'm just by myself, and just doing paperwork, and I'll listen to some podcasts on the side, and I'll just click on whoever's live, and I'll just type in a few minutes. And that's where, if you ever see me come on your podcast, I'm there for like 5 minutes and I'm gone, because I have to go put out a fire for one of my coworkers, But yeah, so I'll do a lot of hit and run stuff. So. So yeah, so that's me. And then Mr. Randy. Oh yes, answer your own question. Who do you listen to?
I have a variety. I'm kind of about a couple years ago. I became a primarily YouTube watcher. So I'll sit in the living room having my meals and we'll sit and watch. The wife and I will sit and watch a lot of different channels. The wife really likes the slot machine channels where there's a narrator there and that they aim the camera at the slot machine and then they play for a ridiculous amount of time until they burn through thousands of dollars. And we sit there and go, we never bet that high. Never. We've recently been watching a lot of coin pusher videos where the guys are playing these coin pusher machines out in Vegas at a 5,000 or a 10,000. Last night I just watched one with $100,000 buy-in. That was just insane. The guy ended up pulling out $2,900,000 worth of stuff. Wow. He ended up there was a mystery bag that had a die in it, and then it times whatever you pulled out of the machine, and he got ×5, which was pretty cool. It's a life-changing money. Don't know what more to say about that, But on serious stuff, on science stuff, that's why I was asking. I got a couple of guys that do weather that are interesting. There's a climate paleontologist out there named Diamond who does the Oppenheimer Ranch Foundation, who talks about the weather and stuff. Usually does about 20 minutes every day or every other day. But then he'll go out into the New Mexican desert and look at hieroglyphics. And cave paintings and that, and compare it to celestial events. And they're out trying to explain what the different. And he's been shunned by the climate change community because he's got his own ideas about climate. What causes climate and climate change. There's not a whole lot of human involvement in his version of climate change. And then I love listening to Ken Davidson, who does about 10 minutes every day for his site is Suspicious Observers. It's SO News channel on YouTube. He does a daily report on the sun. That's very fascinating. And he's also written a couple of books on the sun and how amazing it is that these guys that they used to consider crackpots are now becoming recognized scientists because they've sat there and said, made findings that are outside of the accepted norm of the scientific community. And then they look at them, brand him a weirdo or whatever. And then 4 or 5 years later, they're writing papers on the stuff he was talking about on YouTube 5-6 years ago. And he's done a couple of textbooks that are interesting, how the sun and the Earth's magnetic field controls a lot of our climate. So as a kid, I was always wondering, curious about what clouds were, that kind of thing. That's what really got me into watching that. And then really bizarre, I follow Secure Team 10 for UFO news and oddball videos and that for the weird things. For comics outside of Perch and Thinking Critical, like I said, I can't watch kayfabe anymore because I just lose time. Yeah. But there's a guy out there, RJ, I believe his name is, who does a program called The Fourth Age. And he is I want to say not a political psychologist, where he talks about modern comics and the problems with treatment of heroism in modern comics that I find incredibly interesting to listen to and enlightening. But other than that, there's a few oddball political things that I listen to that would just brand me a wackadoo. So, pardon?
Did on Sana Amanat. That was a very interesting.
Wasn't it? Yeah, that was a couple of years ago. That he drew the political lines between Sana Amanat and the Clinton administration, or the Clintons in general. That was very fascinating. But he's done, and to me, some of the stuff's radical, but some of the stuff I think he's dead on about the treatment of how heroism and the treating of the hero in science, or not science, but in comic literature has really decayed, and how they're treating, those kind of tropes anymore. It's pretty fascinating.
Cool. All right.
Yeah. Other than that, it's fail videos. Fail videos, car accidents. Yeah.
the stuff we all scroll by is just have to stop to watch.
Yeah, and YouTube just turned me on to a 24-hour WPT channel that they play with practically no commercials. It's always fun. It's World Poker Tour.
Nice.
It's always fun.
Stop consuming what you hate. Let it go.
Yeah.
John says, Zim, love the spinner rack.
Hey, John.
Thanks, man.
And
Got that from a retailer. He called up and says, I got a spinner rack. You want it? And it was like, yep.
80s made conspiracies, rabbit hole conspiracies are pretty true all the time. Now, there you go.
Yeah, there's a tweet that goes around that somebody took a screenshot of some newspaper article said conspiracy theorists are being proven right more frequently, and that's a problem.
That is a problem. All right, well, gentlemen.
Odd thing about conspiracies, a lot of them are true. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's didn't they recently admit to aliens being real?
Yes. Yes.
Just unexplained.
You're right.
Well, the Pentagon says that they're in possession of vehicles not made on Earth. Now, unless we've got a Ford plant on the moon, I'm not aware of.
Well, it's in the future, so Ford is there, and they send them back in time. That's what it is.
They're DeLorean.
Yeah.
There you go. Nice. All right.
That's all in DeLoreans. Yeah, that's why. Yeah. Anyway.
All right, gentlemen, we made it to the second hour, so we're done, which is fantastic. All you guys are great. So, in closing, please let's start with Mr. Michael. Please let everybody know where they can find you and your work, sir.
So my Get in Tune podcast runs on my YouTube channel. It's just my name at Michael Grassia. Actually, all my social media is at Michael Grassia. And starting in July on Instagram and Facebook at the Wiz Comic. So it's WIZ at THEWIZCOMIC. You can go back and read the past strips. I will be bringing them back. It's an old style newspaper humor strip. So if you like that type of stuff, go back and check it out. I could admit not everyone's a winner, but they are. I did my best. I did my best, man. There was a fun time drawing that. I'm excited to bring it back. It'll be a weekly strip. So yeah, just find me on all social media: YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. What else is there? Twitter, whatever's there's. You just at Michael Grassia, you'll find me.
All right, nice. Randy, where can they find you and your work, sir?
I'm an infrequent co-host on Dispatches from Outside the Box on the Raging 2 network. I'm on there. I don't know how often I'll be on there from here on. All depends upon the topic. See, Michael wants to talk about. Then I have the Zimcast over on the Raging 2 network at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Then on Sundays, I do a Sunday Funnies at 9 a.m. early in the morning, where we talk about the lighter and more fun side of funny. So I'd like to say we're putting the fun back in funny books on that program, or at least we're trying to. Sometimes the conversation gets a little crazy and way off of center. But other than that, I'm currently working on a graphic novel about my COVID experiences that we'll do a campaign for, do a sign-up page as soon as that gets a lot farther along, and I have a definite idea when I'll be done with it. So it's getting quite involved. I'm having a lot of fun with it. So trying to play around with a couple of different art styles and just enjoying myself on it and taking my time with it. So
nice. Mr. RJ, where can I find you and your work, sir?
We are Critical Blast on all social media platforms, so it's very consistent, easy to find us. Even the YouTube channel is YouTube/Critical Blast. It will take you right to the page. We are also just pulled the trigger today on our last Ingram Spark release. So The Devil You Know Better is an anthology that we just published. Features 20 different stories of people's encounters with the devil, sci-fi, comedy, fantasy, horror, what have you. And that means that we are just a week or so away from launching the Indiegogo of the special edition of this, which will be a hardcover signed by Mike Barron and Hart Fisher, both contributors to the book.
Sweet.
And we've contracted with Stefano Cardacelli to do artwork for this special edition only. At every $500 limit that we reach on the campaign, it will produce a piece of chapter art, which basically means an illustration for one of the stories, up to 20, which which would be $10,000, which would make me so giddy. But we'll see if that happens.
Nice. All right, cool. Sam?
Cast the Craze anywhere on social media with a DA, not a THD. You can find me there. And May 31st, check out my Kickstarter for There's an Alien in My Toilet Part 2. How does an alien become a samurai? The only way to find out is in this issue. And if you're in Dallas, I'll be at the Fan Expo in June, and in August I'll be at the Denton Comic Art Expo.
Cool. Nice. Mr. Mark, where can they find you in your work, sir?
All right, easiest way is Google It Came From the Radio, www.itcamefromtheradio.com. We are the official show of the Big Apple Con. You can hear us on every Monday through Friday after 10 p.m. in Westchester County, New York on 88.1 FM WARY, on Wednesdays at 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. on sci-fi.radio, on Thursdays at 4 p.m. on btdradio.com, and on Fridays at 6 p.m. on indievolt.com. Also, we have a live show courtesy of the East Meadow Public Library every second Wednesday of every month. The next live show, which will be on the 11th, which is this coming Wednesday, we're going to have Mariano Nicieza as our guest. You can go to www.eastmeadow.info. You can sign up to register to be part of our studio audience, and you can be part of our live show. Other than that, It Came From the Radio. We have Instagram. Actually, don't use Instagram that much. Twitter. Facebook is where I usually hang out, and our brand spanking new website, www.camefromtheradio.com.
All right, nice. Well, I'm JD Calderon, and you can find me here just about every Sunday, sometimes, most of the time, with other fine creators. But you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and DeviantArt, all under JD Calderon, or you can find me on theOzmoChronicles.com or TallTales.com. Recently finished a campaign a couple of weeks ago, and trust me, there's another one coming up in a few weeks. So because that's how I like to roll. So thank you guys. You guys are all awesome. Like I said, everybody here has a podcast. So they're all in the show notes. Go check them out. All of them are worth listening to. All these guys are fantastic interviewers. All of them fantastic promoters of independent comics. And I just wanted to say thank you to all of you guys. Thank you. All right, for being
Thanks
awesome.
for having me on. Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.
Yeah. All right, take care, guys. Have a good night. Bye.
Bye, guys.
See ya.